Christine and I are here live on Amazon. I'm D. Scott Smith. We are going to have fun talking about thriving in your empty nest. This is a comprehensive guide. Hey, it is an opportunity. When the children move out, you've got your opportunity to learn, to expand, to grow, and to thrive. And that's what we're all about. We are here to help you with tips, tricks, books, products, things that you need to know to be successful as you move into and thrive in your empty nest. Welcome to our Amazon Live show. Well, Christine, we've got a special show today. It is Giving Tuesday here on Amazon.
Woo! I don't know who came up with that idea, but I'm so glad that it caught on and that people are still discovering it. And Giving Tuesday can take on a lot of different outward appearances, but this way, giving through Amazon has been available for, I don't know, a couple of years.
That's been available for a while. Yeah, been available for a while. And, it's just been a great deal because you can actually see how much money is going to the charity of your choice. And just to let people know, it doesn't cost you anything to do that. Amazon is taking out of their pockets to make these donations, and it's a percentage on the shopping that you do. So smile.amazon.com is all you need to do. And today we've got representatives from AlzAuthors, and we've got a huge amount of books to go through.
Yes, that's ALZ at the beginning of Alzheimer's. Exactly. Yes, they have a lot of books. People are looking for something about Alzheimer's. They're going to find what they didn't even know that they wanted because it goes in so many different directions. And that's probably no secret. When we decided we need to help Amazon give on Giving Tuesday, on Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and all through the year, we need to help Amazon give. We selected AlzAuthors.
Yeah. Hey, let me play the little video and show people how they can select AlzAuthors.
Good.
And let's just watch that. It'll be just a minute. You can support your favorite charities by using the Amazon Smile program. Go to smile.amazon.com. Choose the button here on the upper left to select your favorite charity. Scroll down. Put in the name of the charity, like ALZ Authors, and search. Once you've found the group, you can read about them. So here we have ALZ Authors, and it's a community of authors sharing Alzheimer's and dementia stories. Once you've found the charity, go ahead and click the Select button. And now your purchases will all go toward supporting your favorite charity using the Amazon Smile program. And so a couple of the things that we always get asked about, Christine, every time we do a show, people want to know your microphone. What microphone are you using?
Exactly.
And so can you do a little demonstration of what it sounds? Because you're using, and I've got it highlighted in the carousel, the Samson Q2U microphone. And give people a little example of what it's like with and without. And if they've chosen AlzAuthors and they choose to buy it, a little bit of money from Amazon is going to go to AlzAuthors. So give a little demo of what that sounds like, and then I'll show.
I did not realize that. Okay, let's sell some microphones and help Amazon to give and help AlzAuthors and help everyone that AlzAuthors, they say they shine the light
Mhm.
during the Alzheimer's journey. So let's help them shine the light. This is Samson Q2U. I'm going to reach down into the settings. I'm going to go off of Q2U and I'm going to go, let's see, how about the internal microphone?
Mhm.
Let's
There we go.
try. So now I'm on the internal microphone. Is that in my laptop?
Yes, and it
Yes.
just sounds like you're calling from a very old rotary dial telephone.
A black one, I'm sure, with the wire with
That's right.
the webbing on it or something like that, from a black and white movie. And
Dial
it
Clunker
works.
5.
It
That's
works. And you
KL5.
just need to talk to someone. But you would like to have a more dynamic voice. I have
Mhm.
a low voice. I'm definitely an alto. And I also have a thin voice. And when I would sing for this or that, it was like, wow, I've got to get her a different microphone because this is a large room, etc. So now I'm changing and I'm going up to my HD Pro webcam C20. So does that sound different to you? I'm trying to keep my volume the same. Oh, you might be muted.
Oh yeah, there you go. You sound much better, but it's still
Yes.
echoey and thin. I'll say very dry. You sound very dry.
Okay. Right now, there's nobody going beep, beep, beep past the window, but that would really make a difference because it would take in the beep, 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 the dog chasing
Mhm.
the cat across the floor, etc., because it's clear over there. All righty, let's go back to the one that a number of people said, "Oh boy, what are you using?" And I actually learned it instead of saying a microphone that my husband gave me. It's a
So that is the Samson
CPU.
Q2U. If people click on that and buy it, make sure you choose the Smile program and choose AlzAuthors, and let Amazon send some of their profit to this wonderful, wonderful group. I have now highlighted in the carousel the microphone I use, the Shure SM7B with the Cloud Lefter inline amplifier. And so let me just give a little demonstration. And so right now I'm using the Shure microphone, this one right here. And I'm going to switch out and use the webcam microphone. And so there you go. Now you can hear what it sounds like. Christine, what do you think?
Whatever we would be doing, I'd be going, honey, switch, please. For a brief conversation, can you come in here really quick? I could stand it, but not for a half hour, 1 hour show.
Yep. So just to give everyone an idea, again, this is the webcam microphone. I mean, it's okay. It works.
It works.
Then you want to go back. If you really want to sound good, get yourself a quality microphone, whether you're doing business, family, whatever you're doing, get a quality
Education.
highlighted in there.
Yeah.
And as we go in, we've got I'm going to bring in the group from AlzAuthors here in just a moment.
Good.
And but you have a couple of books yourself, and so people can see those. They're at the beginning of the carousel. Care Griever Kit, and people can just click on that and take a look. But it is some practical steps that people can take when you have, as I explained it, those waves of grief for loved ones, family members, and then your Active Aging, Volume 1, talking about the aspects of aging. But with that, Christine, let's bring our guests in.
Yay. They have more than 2 books. Hello, everyone. Oh, I'm so glad. I'm meeting Susan for the first time, but 1 year ago today, on Giving Tuesday, I did meet the rest of you. And throughout the year, we get interconnected. Marianne, you were elected before we went live, and everyone says you are well practiced. I am going to assume that a person is listening going, all's author. And so you can just spell it out. And for those who already know, the rest of our show, we're going to dive into their stories and into a bunch of books you can see in the carousel.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Christine and Scott, for inviting us back. We've been looking forward to this. It's always a wonderful occasion to meet with you and to be on your show. This is exciting because we are Amazon affiliates and do most of our work with Amazon. So it's a privilege. We are AlzAuthors. Christine said ALZ, short for Alzheimer's authors. And we are the global community of authors writing about Alzheimer's and dementia from personal experience. And our mission is to light the way for others, people currently on a dementia journey with a loved one who may be a little lost, confused on their own, trying to find resources, support, knowledge, understanding, guidance for their journey. They may not have a lot of time to look for resources, to go online and do Google searches or go to the library or go to a bookstore. And if they do, they may not know exactly what they're looking for. So we've done the work for them. All of us have written our own book based upon our own personal story. And we've branched out to include many, many others. There are over 300 other AlzAuthors in our organization, and more than 300 books and other types of resources, all categorized on our website in our bookstore to make the shopping or the browsing easy for someone who might be looking for something specific about taking care of their husband who has dementia, or their mother who has Lewy body disease, or whatever your situation is. We've tried to streamline it for you so that in just a matter of minutes, you can find something that might bring some value to you as you navigate this journey on your own.
Yay. When you started, I mean, who did you connect with initially that's on the screen today?
So this is a great question. I published my first book in 2013. It's called Blue Hydrangeas: An Alzheimer's Love Story. And I was an independent author. I knew nothing of book publishing and couldn't figure out how to reach my ideal audience. It is a work of fiction, so it wasn't the same as like a memoir, but I had read Jean's book. What happened was Jean, on her journey, she went crazy scouring bookshelves and the internet looking for resources to help her as she cared for both of her parents at the same time. And she came upon my book and she loved it and wrote to me, and she wrote me a beautiful letter and told me how much the book meant to her. And not too long after that, I came upon the idea that maybe I could collaborate with other authors to not only raise awareness of our books, but also Alzheimer's and dementia. Kind of a twofold purpose. And I remembered Jean and I reached out to her and she was like all about it. She thought it was a great idea. So I asked her, do you know anybody else? And she said, I do. I know somebody named Vicky Tapia, who has also written a book about caring for two parents with dementia at the same time. And the three of us became the core of AlzAuthors. We just did 1 month. This was a 1 month project to try to see if we could stir up some interest in our books and in Alzheimer's and dementia. We did it in June. It was 2015. And we ran a social media campaign. And what we learned is, although we had never met in person, we really liked each other. We became very good friends. And later in the year, we decided we'd do it again. And then the following year in 2016, we said, why don't we do a blog? Let's start a blog. And instead of it just being about us, we will invite other authors to write for our blog. And we'll post a new author every day, Monday to Friday, for the month of June. So we were looking for about 20 people. And who are we going to get? And would anybody write? We had no idea. But we started reaching out to other authors. And at the end of the month, we had more authors than we needed. So we decided, why don't we keep it going, but we'll just do it once a week. That'll be enough. And that's was 6 years ago. And here we are. We're still now every other week. we have a new book, a new author, and a new blog post. And then in the weeks between, we do a podcast. So we actually interview the authors. And so people who maybe don't have time to sit and pick up a book or take the time to read can listen to the author and learn about their story and discover their book that way.
Jean, you wrote a beautiful letter. And you had also written a beautiful big letter. Oh my goodness. Tell us what was your book called?
So my book is called Alzheimer's Daughter.
Yes.
And both of my parents were diagnosed on the same day with Alzheimer's. And I was working full-time as a third grade teacher. Hometown girl, I would go by my parents' house each night to make sure they had food to eat. They were taking their medicines. It was a difficult journey, but I had always been a reader. I read to solve problems. And so I tried to read my way through this journey as well, and searched for anything I could find that anyone had written. This was the early days of e-readers. And Ann Campanella and I often talk about sitting late at night, devouring and finishing one book and immediately searching for the next one, because no story is identical to yours, but each one gave me the strength to keep going each day, to wake up, put my feet on the floor, stand up, keep breathing, keep going. And so at that point, I was a reader. I never expected to be a writer, even though I was a teacher. But my mom and dad, their journey with Alzheimer's lasted about 8 and 9 years. My mother passed first. And after she passed away, 1 week later, I was sitting with my dad and he had no memory of her. And I thought, oh my goodness. And I had been keeping a journal to stay in close touch with my sister, who lived in Florida. I'm in Ohio. She lived in Florida. So we would discuss things in this journal. And at that point, I thought, well, maybe this journal could be fleshed out into a book that could help other people who have this kind of devastation in their family also. And so I started fleshing out that journal. It was really meant to be just a family story for my children and my sister's children to know our history as far as Alzheimer's disease. And I went to a local writing group to have them help me write my family story well. And they said, oh, Jean, this has a larger scope. And so I worked 4 years on it, filled with guilt because my parents were very private people, feeling very guilty for publishing something so personal and revealing about them. And after I actually clicked the button on Amazon to publish, I waited almost for punishment through reviews. I thought each review would say, you evil daughter, how could you say such things? But it was quite the contrary. People said, this is a beautiful book. Thank you for helping me through my journey. And then it was at that point that I reached out to Mary Ann because I needed validation from someone who had already published and had helped me so much. And then we reached out to Vicki and the whole thing unfolded as Mary Ann told you. And I believe Ann was one of our first people who wrote about her beautiful book, Motherhood Lost and Found, for us. And Susan has come in recently. But Vicki, Mary Ann, and I were the three at the core of it. And we have kind of navigated and figured things out by the seat of our pants, really, and always with the goal of helping caregivers find resources that will support them.
And I heard the words, Ann Campanella. I didn't want to sound like I was saying and. I heard the words devouring books, one book doesn't touch everything that's going on, and it changes through the months or through the years. So Anne, she said the title of your book. Go ahead and repeat that and tell us how you came to write and publish and come on board with AlzAuthors.
I would love to. My book is called Motherhood Lost and Found, and I was 33 years old when my mother started showing signs of Alzheimer's. I was a newspaper and magazine editor and a journalist, and I had been used to writing other people's stories. My mother had taught me from an early age to rely on books for inspiration and direction, and just I always believed that books would help me thrive. And going through the loss of my mother at such a young age, when nobody in my peer group had any experience with what I was going through, I desperately needed stories that would help me feel like I could get through this. And I didn't want to just survive. I really wanted to thrive. And it's one reason why I feel like our huge selection of memoirs and so many other types of books are such a gift to people, because I was searching, as Jean said, just in the middle of the night, just for one title. And there was very little available back then. That was in the late 1990s. And so to be invited to be a part of AlzAuthors was such a gift, because once my book became part of AlzAuthors, I really wanted to share my story to help other people, particularly younger people who were going through this experience without any sense of community. And then to think I could offer all of the things that I didn't have. And what a huge, huge gift that was. And I'll just say a little bit about, I was trying to become a mom as I was losing my mom. And I was also a horseback riding instructor. And so I relied on my horse. He was really just kind of he held my heart and helped me through the experience. And anyway, I think that's probably enough. Maybe we should go back to Vicki.
I was thinking about Vicki. That's one of the biggest therapy animals that I've heard of. Usually it's something on your lap, but doing what you were doing, my horse held my heart. That just sounds like it's going to be some sort of a writing project right there. Vicki, I have a question for you. How many AlzAuthors books have you read?
I have no idea. A lot.
Yes, because every single book is vetted. No one there says, "Oh, it looks interesting. I read the first sentence and the last paragraph, so throw it in. It looks good. I like the cover." You don't do that. The dedication there is amazing. And I just have to say right now, as Vicki prepares to tell her story, all of these people are volunteers. All of the money that is donated in that direction is not paying their salaries that they set for themselves. There are no salaries, but there are costs, as everyone knows, to trying to take what you have, a treasure, something that is so needed, and try to get it out there to other people. So, Vicki, thank you for reading all those books. Thank you, everyone.
You're welcome.
It was our joy.
While there are always a few similarities between each of the books that we read, there's also non-similarities, and you learn things, you learn tidbits along the way. Most of the time when I'm reading, I'm saying to myself, where were you, book, when I needed you 20 years ago? But I'm so happy that we have this organization to be able to help other people in a way that we were unable to be helped at the time, simply because there were no books. Or very
Vicki, what's the title of your book?
My book is called Somebody Stole My Iron, a family memoir of dementia. And like Jean, both my parents had dementia at the same time. My dad had Parkinson's-related dementia, and my mom had Alzheimer's disease. My dad was such a gentle, quiet man. You could barely tell the difference between when he was before he had been diagnosed and after. He was pretty mellow. My mom was a different story. My mom and I had always clashed through my growing up years, and dementia did not make life easier for either of us. I found myself keeping a journal just to help myself cope every day. At the end of the day, I'd sit down and write in my journal, or type, I should say. And that helped me. That helped me. It was my best coping mechanism. But my mom called me one day and she said, Vicki, well, this was after I had moved them to live near closer to me. They lived 2 hours east of me. And for years, my mom was able to cover up. She was an immensely great actress. And my dad was so quiet, who knew either way. I did not realize how dire the situation had become. And even when it was staring me in the face, I had trouble putting it all together. It's amazing, the human capacity to normalize things that really aren't very normal. My mom was a great cook. She started burning everything she cooked. She would have a refrigerator with a milk carton with mold growing around the top of it. She pulled out her kitchen utensil that she had, and she said, why do I have this in my drawer? And what would I ever use it for? Well, it was her egg beater. She had no clue. She lost her skills to operate the computer. I'm still going, oh, this is stress taking care of dad. This is stress taking care of dad. Well, his 90th birthday rolled around, and the family all came together in their house, and a couple of their grandchildren flew in from the West Coast, and the oldest grandchild rang the doorbell. My mom answered it and said, who are you? She had no idea who her granddaughter was. So at that time, can you believe this? It was still another year before she was diagnosed. It's amazing. At that time, several months later, they moved closer to where I lived. But I got a little ahead of myself. So back to the day she called me up and she said, Vicki, somebody stole my iron. And I'm amazed that someone would want to steal an iron. I said, what? She said, yes, they must have broken into my apartment and taken it out of the drawer in the bedroom. Like, okay, let me check into this. We never did track her iron down. I decided that she must have left it maybe in there's a place where you could wash clothes and iron in the facility she was living. I think she probably left her iron there and someone else found it and had no clue who it belonged to, and whatever. It's amazing. So our journey lasted about as long as Jean's. My mom passed a year before my dad. My book sat idle. My journal sat idle. People that also had a family member that was experiencing dementia knew people close to me and asked to read my journal, which I by then had started to clean up, thinking maybe I had a book. But when I got it all together, I shared it. I couldn't go through with the publishing. I was very worried about other family members. Much like Jean, I just thought, oh, I feel so guilty. This is a private story. But with lots of encouragement from different people surrounding me, I did, like Jean, hit the publish button eventually. And that was in 2014. And I think that I'd like to say the last gift my parents gave me was this group. Because without Alzheimer's, I never would have been part of an organization such as this to help light the way for others.
AlzAuthors does a lot more than read books and post them, recommend them, more than blogs. They also gather together people to talk on topics. And one of those topics is when there's a relationship difficulty and history, and then moving it. And that applies to so many people. People have become caregivers of their ex spouse. They have become caregivers of someone who did not take care of them when it was necessary. And they just do it because of who they are. Now, Susan, you've come on more recently, and I'm thinking, okay, this has been going about 7 years as an entity. And so now in comes Susan. Was this did you draw a number? They felt like they needed another person, and all these people are going, me, choose me, and you got the lucky
All right.
number. Okay, I'm glad you're laughing. tell us everything. Go ahead.
Me with a lucky.
I actually joined AlzAuthors in 2019, and I'm the one who does all of the graphics. I try to do the inspirational graphics. I do the promotional graphics for authors. I do a lot of the artwork. And I started out doing that and just basically behind the scenes. And then, what was it? About a year later, I became manager, and then more recently, board of directors. So here I am with that. And they have embraced my book, which was a very difficult story for me to write. I wrote a memoir, In Search of Rainbows. That is a book about my caregiving journey with my mother, who had Lewy body dementia. We had been estranged for many years due to a difficult childhood with her. I had left home at the age of 16, and I moved across the country thinking that part of my life was over. Well, my father, he was her primary caregiver, and when his health started to fail and my mother's condition grew worse, he called me. And my brother did not want to step in and help, so it all fell to me. So I moved them closer to me. I started on this caregiving journey with them. And my mother, I had always had a closer relationship with my father, but my mother and I were I didn't want to be near her again. I was always afraid of being hurt. But the dementia changed her. She became an entirely different person. She became kinder, softer, and she was more approachable. And as time went on, we developed this new relationship, and it became beautiful. It became something I had always dreamed of, having a mother in my life. And as time went on, it became something that I knew I would treasure. But at the same time, I was afraid because she had abandoned me so many times in my life. And I knew that the end of her life was coming. And it was almost like being abandoned again. And with all these family dynamics going on, I was bounced around with emotions and with things that I never thought that I could ever face again. And so I wrote my story because I knew family dynamics is something that happens within every household, every situation, with every person. Some are more extreme than others, but I too kept a journal, especially after my mother passed away. By the time at the end of her life, we made peace. We were able to come full circle and find forgiveness and healing. And it was something that it was such a large event in my life that I had to share it with others, because I knew I couldn't be the only one. And I wanted others to feel validated. I wanted others to know that they weren't alone. And so I wrote my book, and there were so many personal things in there. I talk about my childhood. I talk about how my mother and I found each other again, and how I didn't even know who she was. And I've always wondered, who is this person? I knew she was my mother, but I didn't really know her as a person. So after she passed away, I went back to where she grew up. I met her family, and people that I didn't know very well. And I did all of this research. I had a brother before I was born. He passed away shortly after he was born. And that kind of set the stage for her depression. And I found out more about that situation. And it was like coming home again. It was full circle. And it was something that I had to write about. I had to put it in a book. And that was something that became my book, my memoir, In Search of Rainbows. I called it In Search of Rainbows because rainbows mean hope and promise. And rainbows also bring beauty after the storm.
You know, I just love these. So Vicki, Marianne, Jean, and Susan, you know, your stories are all different, but I know they resonate with so many people, right? We all have something that, whether it's direct or a family member or a neighbor. And so I'm so grateful that you have put this together. I just want to take a moment to remind everybody that we are speaking with AlzAuthors. It is Giving Tuesday, which means take a moment from the shopping and think about all of the good that can be done by just diverting a little bit of money. So, although you can use the Smile program and choose AlzAuthors as the charity that you would like Amazon to send a portion of their money to, you can also send directly. You can find AlzAuthors. I know there's a sweatshirt right on screen that tells you exactly how to find AlzAuthors, and you can donate there because this is an important bit of work. There are hard costs. Again, as Christine said, these are all volunteers. Nobody here is getting paid from this money. This is just here to help people with their journey and their stories. And we've got quite a few books to talk about. And let me just put the first one up here that we've got in the carousel, and then I'll let you guys take it from here.
Okay, I just wanted to start by saying we recommend all of our books. Every one of them has been vetted. We have read every page of every book. And so we're just mentioning a few of them that are either recent books or just some that have come to our attention for a particular reason. Bushel and a Peck is a wonderful book written by Karen Molina, and her mother had mental illness as she was growing up. And so not only did she care for her mother through her dementia, but she also shares the story of her mental illness. And so that just kind of makes it a unique story.
Are you going to put another one, or did you want to go through all the books that are in the carousel?
Well, we'll just do our best to kind of go through these and
Good.
Sure, we're prepared to talk about them.
Yeah, well, that's
Good.
wonderful. So let's go on to our next book.
This is another one I'll take. Heeding the Caregiver Call is one of our recent, fairly recent books written by Barbara Milton. And what is unique about this book is Barbara cared for her mother after the experience of having a very difficult childhood. I guess I could use the word an abusive childhood. And Barbara also, at the same time that she was caring for her mother who was going through dementia, Barbara was receiving treatments for cancer. So, I mean, it's just amazing the strength and courage that some of our authors have demonstrated in their work.
I'll take this one. Everything Left to Remember is a story of an author and her mother. After she's diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease, Steph decides to take her on a camping trip to the Rocky Mountains. If you can imagine taking somebody with Alzheimer's on a camping trip for 2 weeks, the two of them were on their own, hiking, cooking out, making fires at night to keep warm. It's kind of an incredible journey. The author wanted to take her mom on this trip because her great hope was to learn the truth about her mother's past. Her mom had some secrets that she wanted the author, Steph, wanted to know about before her mother forgot them. And as the camping trip proceeded, soon became apparent that Steph was discovering far more about herself, and was able to let the part about her mom go. It was a rich experience, but not in the way she expected.
I
Really
love that.
gripped me. It was a beautiful story.
Mm. Well, hey, Chad. My husband is muted right now, but he wants to tell you you're awesome.
Yeah, I just want to say thanks, Chad, for following. Just nice.
Yeah.
And remind everybody, we've got so many books in the carousel. But how many books are being curated right now by AlzAuthors?
I can speak to that. So we had to shut down our submissions because we were so far ahead of ourselves. It wasn't really fair to the authors to wait 6 months to see their book on our website once we accepted it. So that's encouraging because it means that there are a lot of good quality resources that are out there, and not like 10 or 20 years ago when you couldn't find anything, especially a personal story. So that's very encouraging, but at the same time it's challenging because we want to be able to like present all of these books all at once, but we can't. We can only do now one every other week. So we're booked out into June already of next year. So I don't know how many more books that is. Another two,
Well, that's great.
another
It's just to
dozen
let
waiting, and
everybody.
then there are still others that are currently being processed as well.
Right.
So just to
Even
remind people, it is just a little sample of so many books that are available that we can highlight today, but we want to make sure that everybody knows that they are available.
Awesome.
The Blue Velvet Drape, Dealing with Dementia by Anne Balcom. Anne was one of my authors, and she was also a younger author who was dealing with caring for her mother with dementia. And her book actually started out as a blog, and she was feeling so many intense emotions that she just needed, as Vicki and Jean and I, and probably all of us have done, just needed a place to put them. And so her journal kind of became her blog. And then I guess she had friends who said, hey, you should turn this into a book. And so she did that. And she's just a wonderful person. She made the trip from Kentucky, where she lives, to North Carolina to join us for an Alzheimer's Association event where we were just demonstrating a big group of our books from one of our traveling libraries. And that just kind of shows the heart behind many of our authors. They just really want to help as much as all of us do.
Wow. Well, Scott puts the next one up, just saying, I've heard it so many times. I'm organized. I'm intelligent. I'm a loving person. Why is this so hard? What am I doing wrong? And it turns out, how can you do something you have not prepared for, not been trained? You don't understand why it's bringing up emotions that you had it pigeonholed, and now all the pigeons are flying in different directions. So, yeah, we have a lot of books. Go right ahead.
Embracing What Remains is another memoir, and this is by Andrea Couture. Her father was a very well-known surgeon, and he developed early onset Alzheimer's. And she just wrote a beautiful story about his decline and what that was like. Also, as a young person, I believe she was in her 30s as this was happening. She has 3 relatively young kids, and she was balancing those things. Her mother was alive and was helping with the caregiving, but it's another perspective for the younger caregiver, which is really valuable. And Andrea has become one of our acquisitions editors. So we are happy to put people to work when they are willing to take on, you know, an important job, an important role. And Drea is wonderful.
I just want to add regarding Andrea's book is that it is one the first, if not the only book in our collection that was written about caregiving during COVID. So those books are starting to come out now as people's experience during lockdown and trying to access care during the pandemic.
Finding the Right Words was written by Cindy Weinstein, and this is a great book. This is a moving memoir that Cindy Weinstein co-authored with a neurologist to help her come to terms with her father's early onset Alzheimer's. This book gives a dual perspective about grief and helping others understand an Alzheimer's diagnosis. This really gives a great story about how she, after her father passed away, she went through a process of grief. She wanted to understand what happened to her father, and she wrote it with a very gifted neurologist who helped her understand. So they wrote it together, and it gives you two different perspectives, from the caregiver's point of view and also from a medical point of view. That's what makes the book so unique.
Oh, some people read for information, and yet the emotions or the validation, the assurance is there as well.
And this next book, I wanted to say, men write Alzheimer dementia books as well.
Yay!
Yes. This one, 10 Days with Dad, was written by Mark Resnick. And this is another memoir, a very powerful story about being raised by a single parent. He had to overcome a lot of his childhood issues, and they gave him strength, and he found strength in a lot of those challenges. He gives insight into his experience about caregiving for his father with Alzheimer's during the darkest days of COVID-19. He talks about how it was right after the pandemic hit, and he had to put his father in a memory care facility. And it was really, when they shut everything down, it was so hard to see him. He wanted to keep in contact with him, and he talks about that and the struggles that they faced together, and what kind of an impact it made on his caregiving journey. And it's a very powerful book.
Along with the books, you also have connected with filmmakers who, same thing. I have this ability, I have this bent, and I have taken my experience and I've put it somewhere. And then, like Jean said, okay, now I'm going to let other people see what's going to happen. And this is what's happening. It's exploding. Ladies, have you found another AlzAuthors anywhere on the planet? I have no idea. Another group that's doing the same thing, gathering and archiving and creating a library.
I don't believe so. And I know that there are a lot of websites and organizations out there that will give you like recommended reads. But we bring the addition of the author's personal perspective to their work and to their journey to our blog. And I think that is the difference. And people can read that and get to learn a little more about what to expect from that book, other than what it says, on the book's page, on the sale page, or on the front cover. And that's something that we work hard for every author. And, if the author isn't understanding what we're looking for, we send it back to them and say, no, we're looking for you to be, open and honest and tell us why did you do this? And I think that's what sets us apart. We're not just a collection of, recommended titles that don't have any backbone.
And we're also a clearinghouse of so many, and we've made a big effort to organize our titles so that if people have a particular need, they can go to our website and find exactly what they're looking for without having to just find millions and millions of different titles. They can really be directed exactly. And most of our titles are found on Amazon, which we're thrilled to note.
As Scott brings up another book, can you instantly say, we've got funny books, memoirs, fiction? Is there like a quick list of general categories?
Yes.
By funny, I mean humorous look at something that is difficult.
Yes, I mean, in general, the collections that we have fall into the genres of memoir, caregiving guides, fiction, children's books, along with teen fiction. And then we have a section called quick reads or art books, which include photography and poetry. And then amongst all of these, we have funny books, spiritual books, just really anything that you could be looking for. We pretty much have it.
And you've created 1 or 2 anthologies.
Two.
Yay. Someone wants
I
a
love
smorgasbord.
these. I was just thinking of the importance of this. A couple of you talked about not wanting to share kind of the inside, the behind the scenes, inside the home story about the family, and yet I think that is so important to capture, and share that, and immortalize that in a way. It's these stories are important and shouldn't just go off into the ether. So I just thank you all for being so willing to share these inside stories. And you also mentioned the cover, and this next book. I just think, how can you not just think this is how somebody got the right cover art here?
This was one of my acquisitions, Choosing Joy by Helene Berger. She took care of her husband for years. If I were to have Alzheimer's, I'd want her for my caregiver. She really exudes patience. She learned from her a lot about how to interact and to meet the needs of someone that is experiencing dementia. I can't
Can you
tell
say her name again? It didn't show up in the title part. Helene.
Helene
Berger. Thank you so much. It just
right
wasn't up at the top.
2019. Yeah, look how
different glasses. Go ahead.
Hard to see, huh? Yeah, but she gives some really great practical suggestions, and her wisdom is well worth reading. And I've met her. She lives in the Berkshires, and I had the opportunity to meet. It's always such a thrill for us to meet our authors. That we haven't met a lot of them, but those that we do meet hold a special place in our heart.
Yeah. And we haven't even met each other in too many instances. I've never met Susan
in person. We're talking about in person, right?
Yeah, in person. I've met Anne once, I think, and I've been with Vicki and Jean a couple of times. But we worked together for 3 years before we ever came together in person?
Yeah, well, except Jean and I.
And we work together every day, even though we all live from coast to coast.
Who's going to talk about Tony's book?
I imagine Jean.
Yes. Oh, yes. So most of the books we talked about up until this point, until Choosing Joy, were written by an adult child about a parent. But we also have a large portion of books, memoirs written about caring for a spouse or a partner, and Running All Over the World by Tony Copeland Parker is just such a great one. It's so inspirational. His partner, Catherine, developed early onset Alzheimer's, and she was a marathoner, and she was Tony's inspiration in beginning to run. He had had heart valve replacement surgery, but he was determined he was going to learn to run with her. And they became vagabonds, sold their home, their car, everything, and just ran around the world, marathons, half marathons all over the world. He had been a pilot for a living, so they just took on this life of staying for a few weeks in one spot and moving on. And he was determined not to let Alzheimer's deter them from doing that. He really believed that she remained better when she was physically active, doing what her body wanted to do, and her mind was clearer when she had to think through new things each day. Where were they going? Very inspirational book.
That was the word I was thinking. I mean, the encouragement of, hey, what we will continue to do, what I'm going to, no one's going to be my dementia doula and go, oh, if they're exhibiting this now, do that, because that always works. You're making it up and you're going forward. And what an encouragement to someone who's going, I thought it was all over with. And here these people went on a 2-week camping trip. Oh, how wonderful.
Yes.
And I do love the man factor too, because I've served alongside both family caregivers who are men and hired caregivers who are men when 2-person lifts were needed, etc. And I remember their faces and what we did to make each other grin. I'm so grateful for men who go, we care too.
And this is another example, We Danced, by Scott Rose. It's a wonderful example of a spouse, caregiver, a male. His wife, Maureen, was diagnosed with early onset Alzheimer's, and it details his loving journey with her until her passing. It's a very, very tender story. I recommend it to anyone.
What Lurks in the Woods is a fascinating story. Nicole Bell, who had young children, her husband developed early onset Alzheimer's, and with her medical engineering background, she shares the heart-wrenching story of caring for her kids and at the same time researching, trying to find out what was going on with her husband. And she learned a lot about tick-borne diseases and how they can affect the mind, and neurologically they can have a huge impact on your health. And I was particularly interested because I had a few years ago co-infections of Lyme disease, and I know just how serious something like that can be. And her story is beautifully written and so well researched. It's an amazing and fascinating journey.
Dementia with Dignity by Judy Cornish. This book and her other book, the Dementia Handbook, which is probably going to pop up next on the screen, are written. To me, they're amazing. They're the books I wish I had had when I was caring for my parents, because she actually gives specific instructions on how we need to meet these people where they're at. We can't drag them to where we are. We can't force them into our reality. We can only join their reality. She's full of so much wisdom. I'm amazed at how much I learned reading her book. And this is 10 years after I took care of my own parents when I first laid eyes on this book. I mean, it's person-directed home care, how to cope and how to best interact and have a positive outcome with people experiencing dementia.
Mm-hmm. I recommend people look up Judy Cornish and find out how she has a lot of background. She's more than a person who has something to say about dementia.
Right.
And
she's an elder care attorney to begin with.
Yeah, retired now.
Yeah, she retired, and then she is definitely worth looking at. Yep.
Hey, Russ Hedge, thanks so much for saying hello. He says good afternoon for some of you. Oh, yeah, it's still afternoon for all of us, I think. Is that right? Even though you do have authors from the other side of the planet.
We do.
There's at least least one that we got,
More than one.
that Scott and I got to meet one time. You have more? How many?
Oh,
What
yes.
are the
Yeah.
countries?
I was going to say,
We're
I
global.
was just going
You're
to break in
global.
with
Yeah.
Russ here. Yeah, Russ is definitely simpatico with all of this conversation here. He actually did a podcast with his mother called Happy Moments with Mama. As he would go and visit her and record, and the two of them would sing together, and it was just a really wonderful
Oh my
thing that
goodness.
Russ did. And so, Russ, thanks for taking that time, and thanks for joining us here.
Hi,
So
Russ.
let's
Hi, friend.
we'll continue on here.
Christine, to answer your question very quickly, people in England, South Africa, Australia, Israel. Help me out, guys. Do we have
Asia.
South America.
South America? What'd you say, Jean?
Asia.
Asia.
Canada.
Oh, that's awesome. Antarctica. That's the next one.
Yeah.
Caregiving from a distance. Oh,
You never know what might be going on.
This is Judy's other book, The Dementia Handbook. Highly recommend. Well, I'm not supposed to recommend, but yeah.
We're all
everything
recommended by all of us. So yeah,
if they're
all
on the
Bob's
list,
recommended
they're
read.
great.
Yeah, they've been
They're in our
vetted
books.
and they're on our list.
This, as we move into this genre of caregiver guides, which Judy Cornish's book was a part of, another one that is just beautifully written is this Alzheimer's Disease Caregiver Handbook. It's co-written by a doctor and the wife of a man who is in the process of being diagnosed with memory impairment. So it's so unique that one chapter after another, it's such a great read because the wife has all of these questions that she doesn't understand and is able to ask in the book, which are questions that all of us have as readers. And then the doctor writes the next chapter and talks about their observations and the answers to those questions. It is really a great book.
And Meet Me Where I Am, an Alzheimer's Care Guide, is written by Marianne Drummond. And Marianne is a North Carolina person who I've had the pleasure to meet and really become good friends with. And her book, well, first of all, I should say, she is an Alzheimer's nurse with over 20 years of experience and a dementia care specialist. And her book is so compassionately written. I remember reading it late one night as I was dealing with some family member issues and thinking, wow, if I develop dementia, I would like my husband to read this book. And I feel that way about really all of our books, but this was one that came to my mind so strongly.
Wow.
Okay,
Keep that one in mind, honey, and I am not kidding. When I put the dishes into the microwave, I was emptying the dishwasher. As soon as I closed the door, I was like, I know I'm emotional right now about something personal, but when this starts happening regularly, so keep that one in mind, honey.
So we're going to kick off our fiction portion of our book display with Stage 7 by Ruth Stevens. And that's my job because I'm the fiction writer on the management team. Mm-hmm. But fiction has a very strong place in books regarding dementia. I mean, although the stories are not real, they are based in reality because the authors have been on a dementia journey of their own. And carry along with it all of that knowledge as well. But the story is told through the lens of fictional characters and settings and things like that, which gives the author a lot more license. And I think for readers, especially not people in a dementia situation, but people who may not even be familiar with this disease process, can learn a lot about it just by reading the story of somebody going through it. So that could be a gentle entree into dementia world. If many people have written to me that they got a lot of insight from the book, although it had not touched their lives, and other people had told me that it was they felt like I had written their story. So Ruth's book, Ruth's mom had dementia, and she wrote the story first as a play, and it was acted in different places, and she decided to turn it into a book, and it's a love story as well. The main character in the story has placed her mom in memory care, and she meets a man whose wife is in memory care, and the two of them end up having their own love story. The wife passes away. We should clarify that. So the two of them end up finding love in an unlikely place, and it's not only it's a warm story, but it's also funny. This has a lot of humorous moments in it, and there's like a sister who is hilarious, and you'll want to slap her, but it's a great story. It's a good getaway. A lot of the books have sisters that you want to slap.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, real, this raw and real, and that can really be appreciated. Maybe not at the beginning when you're trying to make everything okay, but maybe after a while it's like, yep, I thought that.
Mm-hmm.
Yep,
Mm-hmm.
I've considered that. I also think about people in my position who are brought into caring situations with a person with some sort of dementia, Alzheimer's, and we've talked about Parkinson's. So maybe some of these fictional ones wouldn't be quite like reading a book that's more academic or even different, additional to training films, to read about how some people, to be able to go as a caregiver, oh my goodness, I experienced that last week. Oh, and feel like you're not alone as you're maybe in a private residence.
Yes. The Dragons of Alsace Farm is written by Lori Lewis, whose mother also had dementia. And this is a really intriguing story. It involves a woman who lives on an old farm and really needs a lot of help. It's falling down around her. And she ends up taking in a young woman who has this mysterious past and some deficits. And there's another man, a young man, who is there hired to help her. And there's a little mystery involved in this story as well. But it just shows how these strangers have all come together based on a need and have managed to sustain and support each other. And it's very beautifully written. Oh, Patty Callahan Henry, The Favorite Daughter. You may have heard of Patty. She is a internationally known best-selling author of many, many books. And I've read a lot of them. They're beautiful. She's from the South, so she's Southern author, women's fiction. But she is, many people might not know, is that Patty is a nurse, and her specialty was in the brain and in memory. And she came up with this story of a family where one of the daughters was estranged because her sister did something really horrible to her. And her solution was to run far away and stay away. And then she gets the call that there's something wrong with dad. And so she decides that she needs to overcome her difficulties with her sister and come home and see what's happening and what's, is dad going to be okay? Well, it turns out that dad has dementia. And the siblings decide that they want to do something to help him remember. So they work together on creating this scrapbook. And then they decided to make the scrapbook human and bring real people in. And they have a big party for him. And they're trying to let him see how much he's loved and valued by his community. And it's really a breathtaking story. And yeah, if you like women's fiction, that's a great one.
Wow.
Yeah.
Forgiveness is a big element in before, during, and after. Forgiveness.
Yeah, it's true. And Robin Perini is another well-known author who has written a lot of different books, romance and suspense novels. And this one, Forgotten Secrets, has dementia themes in it. It's not like, it's a sub theme of the book. And sometimes in a novel, it won't be the main focus of the book, but it'll be like kind of a sub theme driving a lot of the story. And in this story, it's about a woman police officer, detective, trying to solve a murder. And it turns out that grandma, who has dementia, actually saw the murderer. So they're trying, and she's confused and not able to articulate. But as the story unfolds, they come to realize that she knows something, and they manage to get it out of her. And this is the first in a series. I think it's a trilogy of 3 books. The other one's called Forgotten Legacy, and I don't remember what that one was about. And it has like a little romantic element in it as well. So you could learn a lot about dementia care. The husband, the grandfather in that story, is very loving, and the children and how they support her on her journey. And the important role that she plays, even with the fact that she does have dementia and cognition problems, she actually was the key to solving a mystery.
Whodunits. They're big. They're big in Clubhouse. They're big in social media. They're big in the movies. And someone said, hey, wait a minute. How about a whodunit with that? Emotional memory and music are 2 of the enduring things throughout.
Moving on into our books for children and teens. This is such an important category for us. So often children in the home hear mom and dad talking about what's wrong with grandma or grandpa, but the child is excluded from the conversation and becomes fearful of the conversation or what's happening within my family. So these books for children and teens can be so important. I don't have young children in my home, yet the books that I'm mentioning here, I love to have them on my coffee table because they are such wonderful explanations of what's happening. Weeds in Nana's Garden by Catherine Harrison makes the comparison of the garden that the grandmother and the daughter and the granddaughter are tending. The garden is falling into weeds. The beautiful garden is not as well kept as it was by grandma. And the mother uses this opportunity to explain to the child, just as weeds are growing in the garden, tangles are growing in grandma's mind. And it's just such a beautiful, natural way to explain what's happening and remove the fear that a child might be feeling. The next one is Granny Needs My Help by Deborah Mills. And it is just such a beautiful children's book as well. The grandchild talks about all the ways the grandmother has helped her in her life by holding her hand, by feeding her, many examples. And then it takes this truly emotional turn that just made me sob when I read it, that now the granddaughter realizes she has to help grandma. She has to hold her hand. She'll have to help her walk. She may have to feed her. It's so beautiful. And then we also have books for teens and No Sad Songs by Frank Morelli. He is a middle school language arts teacher, and he writes this work of fiction from the point of view of a middle school boy whose parents end up in a terrible accident, and the boy ends up taking on the care of the grandfather. And the boy misses so many important parts of being a teenager because he's taking care of grandpa. Yet he turns it around and finds the positive in that and in what that relationship has brought to him. It's really a beautiful book.
Awesome.
Now we are moving into the quick reads and arts books, which are they include our short story books, some of them for seniors, our anthologies, poetry, and photography. And Sit With Me at Sundown by Laurette Clyer is one of a series of gorgeous books that were written for people with dementia. They're actually the kinds of books that you can give to someone with dementia, and they can be the teacher. Like a child could sit with them and they can go through the pages. And some of Laurette's books are about veterans, and some are about, they're sort of old-fashioned pictures that people with dementia can relate to. And the stories and the poems are all very uplifting. They are words that really would feed someone with dementia, feed their heart. They're not a lot of words, just enough that would help feed them. And then I'm going to go through several poetry books here, and we can go fairly quickly. But we have some amazing poets in our stable, and Pauletta Hansel, who wrote Palindrome, is one of them, and she was the first Cincinnati poet laureate, and she just wrote an absolutely beautiful collection of poems. And I'm just going to jump on to the next one. We actually have 3 that I'm going to mention here. Blue River Apple is a book by Nancy Nelson, who has dementia, and her book, and I Am Still Me by Tracy Shorthouse, and Walk With Me by Peter Berry and Deb Bunt. Those 3 books were poetry books written by people with dementia, and they each give just a unique perspective into the minds of people with dementia, and not just the minds, but the heart. And then I believe there's 2 more that we're going to show, and they are books that focus more on photography. Beyond Caregiving by Mickey Clock it's a beautiful, beautiful book with her photography is just gorgeous. I remember seeing her work. She has other books on Amazon and thinking, oh my goodness, I just love these books. And then she wrote this one, and I was so thrilled that we could have it in our collection. And Remembrance of Things Past by Peter Mack is a book of poetry and photography, and he wrote poems about caring for his father who had dementia. So I guess we will wind it up there with all of our books. Oh, except for this is one of our anthologies, Alzheimer's and Dementia Caregiving Stories. It has 8 stories about 8 stories from, basically they are the posts that were shared, and this is our second volume. But each of these have stories that were shared on our blog, and they basically are the stories behind the stories of the books that are in our bookstore.
You've just touched on
we're going to wind
everything.
down.
Oh,
I know that was a lot of information, and I'm sorry about that fun that's coming in.
I think that's about 10% of our books.
Oh my goodness.
It's nice to
be
get
here all day if
just
we did
an
that.
idea.
Yeah. No, and I liked yours because you became a painting, this angelic painting in the Sistine Chapel. I'm taking on the perspective of a person who will see this because it will go out and it will be seen again in the future. And somebody says, okay, I've done it. I have clicked on AlzAuthors, which my husband's going to show in just a moment. I've clicked and I've chosen them to be my Amazon Smile recipient. And I know that I can go and buy a book and maybe find someone to give it to. But I want to be like you people. I want it to go out. And there is something that you offer, that you personally curate a selection of books based upon where it will be placed. It comes with its own holder so that the dentist office, the elder care solutions type place, the elder law attorney's office, the senior center, the library can actually have it. Maybe a church library or something can actually have a personally curated group of books that will touch the people that would normally be waiting there or looking for something to pass the time, assurance, maybe even a library at a school with the teenage and the children's books. And you offer that, and you have, how many have gone out so far? You just started offering that recently.
21.
21.
Yes. Yeah. So that's our newest initiative. We've been working at this for about a year, and we've got 21 of those lending libraries going out coast to coast.
Oh, yes, something you give back so someone else. So if someone really wants this to be available, and maybe even they want to read all those books and then place it somewhere, just whatever, they can contact you.
Yes.
AlzAuthors.
Right.
And let's just remind everybody how they can participate in the Smile program. We'll play the little video 1 minute, and we'll come back and thank everybody.
Good.
You can support your favorite charities by using the Amazon Smile program. Go to smile.amazon.com. Choose the button here on the upper left to select your favorite charity. Scroll down. Put in the name of the charity, like AlzAuthors. And search. Once you've found the group, you can read about them. So here we have AlzAuthors. And it's a community of authors sharing Alzheimer's and dementia stories. Once you've found the charity, go ahead and click the Select button. And now your purchases will all go toward supporting your favorite charity using the Amazon Smile program. And so just reminding everybody again, it doesn't cost anything. Amazon sends the money, and you get to support a great organization. So thank you to all. I know Marianne had it. No, Marianne, you're still here.
I'm still here.
You were going to jump out. But thank you all for joining us here on Amazon. And this is the second annual Giving Tuesday that we've been here with AlzAuthors. Let's just keep it going.
Yes.
Yay.
Thank you
All
for
right.
having us.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you, listeners.
Thank you so much. Thanks,
Wonderful
everybody.
to see you,
so
to
much.
meet you. Thank you.
All right. Well, I'll send you all out and just say thank you to everybody.
Thanks.
Yay. Happy Giving Tuesday.